Okay, this is great. Yvette's laughing already, and we haven't even got started yet. This is our Break the Cage hangout. It's part 4 of a 5 or perhaps an encore 6-part. Yvette and I were talking about that. We haven't figured that out yet. But today is part 5, and we are talking about creatives getting paid. And I'm a creative. Yvette's a creative. You're a creative. And it's really important to figure out how to get paid, unless you really love just doing what you do as a hobby, and that's okay. But there's so many with this starving artist syndrome and feeling like, all that stuff. So we're going to talk today about one of the big bugaboos, monsters in the closet. I use Master Your Monsters as kind of a little framework, but about marketing, which is one of the big things. So say hello to everybody, Yvette.
Hello, everybody.
Just so everybody knows, those pictures behind Yvette are her paintings. I don't have anything adorning my walls here in my little studio in Alberta, but when I come back up here, we're getting ready to go back down to Phoenix here later. I think today we'll probably leave and drive for a couple days, so we'll be back in Phoenix next week. I'm going to bring some paintings back up next time of mine and put them back here because I'm jealous.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
All right. So today we're going to talk about marketing. Now, up till today, we've had 3 episodes. And if you followed those, you know what we've talked about. We've talked about whether or not it's necessary to sell out and how you find an avatar and the requirement to think about business, that it's not, if you just say, well, I'm just going to do my stuff and put it out there and somebody's going to pay me. Right. Maybe, probably not, but it doesn't happen that often. So there's all kinds of things to think about, and we've talked about those in the other episodes. And today we're going to talk specifically about marketing. So Yvette, before we get started with the 4 pieces that we were going to cover today, what are your first thoughts when someone says marketing?
Well, in my case, I would say it's definitely been easier for me to market other people than to market myself.
Why?
I think there's the thing of you don't want to feel like it feels uncomfortable, like you're bragging on yourself maybe. I tend to get very self-conscious if I feel that people are paying attention or looking at me. I don't mind people looking at my work. It's a different thing if I feel that people are doing this, where people are looking at me. And one of the things I thought about when you were saying that was the consequence of not marketing yourself is what happened to me for a long time is people come to you for things that they know you can do that weren't necessarily things I wanted to continue doing. And so I was stuck in that for a long time because I wasn't marketing myself, presenting myself in terms of what I wanted to be paid, what I wanted to be paid for. And so I would end up doing things that I didn't really enjoy that people were willing to pay me for. I mean, nothing bad, but like copywriting and doing search engine optimization things and things that I wasn't really that excited about, even writing proposals, which I like doing community programs. I didn't like proposal writing. So if you don't market yourself, you're not giving people a framework to see you or your services or your art or whatever it is. You're not giving them a framework for that so that they can see okay, she or he does this, and so I can pay them to do this for me. Otherwise, it's just kind of like throwing it up in the air. You're putting it out I can do this and this and this, but if those aren't things that you really want to do, it's not effective marketing.
So that's some really good points, and I hope those of you that were listening maybe took a couple of notes, and you might want to do that today as you hear things that get discussed that you find relevant for you or that are challenges that you face. What I heard Yvette say was that because she didn't market, people asked her to do things that she was good at but didn't really enjoy. So that was grant writing. That was, she liked the community project part. It was some SEO stuff and some copywriting, which she happens to be able to do. And so it pays bills. But every artist in the world goes through the phase of, I have to do this thing over here, and I call that the summer job, so that I can support my art habit, my art addiction. I have to do this summer job to support this habit. And the only question for you is, how long are you going to stay in that situation?
Right. That's a good way of putting it too, because there was a point when I literally would take jobs or take a gig, a consulting gig or whatever, to pay for getting stuff ready for an exhibition, to get stuff framed. I even took a job as a waitress. It's been a long time ago, but I took a job as a waitress to get my stuff ready for a show. And so I think a lot of people do that, whether it's temping. I know a lot of people do temp jobs, you know, office jobs, temping around to support their art addiction. And I think that's, or their music addiction, whatever it is, that's a great way of putting it.
So I want you to think about this. You, performers, creatives, whatever your art form is that you're listening to today, even if it's not one of the traditional, you know, painting, music, dance, that kind of thing, but other kinds of expression. How many years have you either let it be a hobby with a burning frustration inside of you, or you're doing it, but you're living the starving artist role, waiting to be, quote, discovered and you're doing these temp jobs, you know, in order to support your habit. How many years have you been doing that? And the answer to that is actually less important than the next question, which is how many more years you want to keep doing that.
Right.
And that's the real question we're going to talk about today. And the answer to that question is
not another day.
Marketing, man. You gotta decide you're going to intentionally, creatively, and in a sustained way do your marketing. Now, we talked about the 5 things before, about who your art serves and what it does for them and what happens in their lives when they use it and how to find them. And we talked about how to create proposals to sell to them. And if you haven't seen all that, then you got to go back and look at my other stuff or the other things that we did. And Yvette's preparing some other things for just specifically for creatives that I've done in the past also. But we have 3 earlier episodes. So let's just talk straight about marketing. Right. The first thing that Yvette said in her discomfort was that she was uncomfortable promoting herself. Now, that usually comes from 2 things. One is you're not comfortable talking about yourself. So you feel like you're either bragging or, you know, whatever. Now, that discomfort comes from 2 places. One is a fear of rejection, which is, I would say, 90%. And the other 10% is, gee, I really am a little bit uncomfortable when people pet me. Yay, you're cool. You know, and that's, people pretend that that's big. And my experience with many clients in the recording studio for 30 years and in my executive career and in my career as a coach is that it's 90-10. 90%, I'm afraid people won't like me and they'll think I suck or I'm not important. And I'm masking that as fear of petting. I'm hiding behind the fear of I don't want the attention when the real answer is they're going to think I suck.
Well, no one wants to fail. I think Manny did a post about this, but no one wants to fail in public. And for those of us who have perfectionistic inclinations, it's sort of like when I think of people who are waiting till everything is perfect in their life to start a family or something, it's like things are never going to be perfect. And I think it's sort of that way with marketing. If you wait until you're perfect and you have everything figured out and everything is just right before you present yourself or what it is you want to do, you might be waiting a really long time. And so
you'll be dead. Let's just be realistic. Because it's only after you're dead that things are static. And so only when they're static are they able to be organized in that fashion. So if you wait like that, you'll be dead.
Well, okay, there you go. That's it.
Okay. That's it. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is that marketing is not slimy. So many people feel like that somehow you have to lie, and I'm going to use straight words here. I don't even mean pretend. You have to lie about stuff, or you have to leave important things out, or you have to do something that makes your integrity meter go ding, 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 ding in order to market.
Right.
That first, I'm going to say 2 things about it. It's not true. And if that has been your own personal experience, either with others or with your own stuff, it's because you weren't prepared with those 5 points we talked about.
Right.
Because the first 3 of the 5 points is what do you do, who do you help, and how do you help them? So what is it that you do and how does this help? I mean, who do you serve and how is it that you help them? If your art or your creativity actually does a service, then there's no lying, exaggerating, stretching, or pretending about it. It actually does a service. If it doesn't do a service, then you need to either do something else or go find the constituency that it does serve.
Right.
So if I create beautiful contact lenses for a person who cannot see, that might be the wrong market, except if they want to have different color eyes today. So that's a completely wrong market, but or could be a wrong market. So you need to find the right market. So number one, marketing is not slimy. It is truthful. Now, Yvette, I want you to reflect on that a little bit. So talk about, it's not slimy, it's truthful. When I say that, given your own earlier objections and your feelings, what comes to mind?
Well, I think of, like, because I paint, and people would assume that I was trying to sell my paintings, which wasn't actually the case. And then it would be like, well, how do I get it towards a conversation about the kind of art I really want to create, which is more conceptual and integrates these other more complicated themes without making people feel that, like if you have to do too much explaining about what something is, I think it makes people feel that, you know, like they're getting lost in the fog. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that has that sort of like vibe to it. It's like, so how do you get to a place? And so what I found is, like, to talk about a specific project, and we've talked about women crossings before. And I think that that's a very good example of something that is a tangible project that does these more conceptual things that I want to do. And there's some aspects of my art that integrate into that, but it's really more about the performance and the way using that particular play to bring these more complicated issues to an audience for discussion. So I think that being specific helps.
So let's be concrete. We've done this before, and I'm just going to ask you about women crossings. If I'm a newbie and I don't know you and I don't know your stuff, but I know you wrote a play, or I'm at a party and I hear you say you wrote a play and the name of it was Women Crossing, and you knew that you had less than 20 seconds to tell me what it's supposed to do, why did you write Women Crossings? 20 seconds, go.
To help contextualize conversations about financial and asset literacy aimed at women.
Okay. Financial and asset literacy aimed at women. That means understanding your money and your assets aimed at women. Okay. So you can tell me that, and then I might ask another question, which is, well, what age group? What do you mean? And if I said, okay, you wanted to write a play about increasing, presumably not decreasing, financial and asset literacy.
Yes, absolutely.
In women. So you want to increase that. Why? Again, short, go.
As an intervention and prevention of domestic abuse.
Okay. And everybody watches this, I want you to hear that. I'm Yvette now. Hey, you know, I wrote this play aimed at helping women increase their asset and financial literacy as an intervention and prevention of domestic abuse.
Yes.
Now that tells you, when you have a conversation with Yvette, whether it brings in paintings, whether it brings in conceptual frameworks, or she does the art-based installations, whatever it is, it's a context. Okay, everything we're going to talk about has to do with making women more aware of how their money works and their assets. And the purpose of that is so that they can either fix or avoid domestic abuse.
Yes. And to provide a platform for businesses that provide that kind of information to market their services and what they do in a meaningful way, and also increase their participation in corporate social responsibility.
Okay, so there she squeezed in another 30 words that are, I'm also aimed at, but if you're listening, what you heard was, wow, I also want to help other institutions that are also, for guess what, preventing and in mitigating domestic abuse, market their services and products and do a better job spreading out their good word, but it's still founded on this domestic abuse and avoidance. So it's really clear what she says. Now, here are the two problems. When you do what Yvette just did, you only will understand what she was talking about if you were listening. So let me just take a little deviation, because this isn't this part, but it's really important.
Right.
90% of the time when you talk to people, If Yvette had said all those, especially if she says intervention and prevention and, you know, products and service, people don't hear. Tune out, glazed eyes, gone. So how do you, and I'm asking you listeners, not Yvette, but I want Yvette to comment on this. How would you make sure that you're just taking the same example, Women Crossings, how would you make sure that your listener was primed and ready to actually listen? There are 2 steps. Step 1, let them talk first. People don't want to listen until they get to blather about their coolness all over you. So invite that. So after you've asked them what they do and, ooh, wow, that's cool, and ask all kinds of interesting questions. So ding dong. Step one is to be an interested listener. If you want one, you got to be one. Duh.
Right.
So ask questions and be one. There's 2 little parts to that. One is that then they like you. And 2, you might actually hear something in what goes on in that part of the conversation that helps you tie in what you do so that it's easy and it hooks into something they've said. Right. So be a good listener is step 1. Listen with an active ear so that you can actually have an intelligent conversation. Forget you for a minute. Care about them, listen, pay attention, and so that you know something about them and you can talk about them in a way that makes them feel, I'm cool, right? Okay, good. And you might find something to hook in. So all that's part 1, be an active listener. After you do that, part 2 is to prime the conversation. So Yvette, if you had done, I'm going to be you now for a minute. So you had asked me all kinds of stuff. I had asked you all kinds of stuff and you told me whatever you do and it's something else because I'm you, right? Okay, cool. Now
I'm a banker.
You're a banker, and I've asked you all about the weird people that come into banks, and if you've ever been present in a bank robbery, and what kind of training do they give you for that, and just all kinds of things that you like talk about for a minute, right? So I give you 5 minutes of my undivided attention, and nothing that you say is in any way related to mitigation or prevention of domestic abuse. So there's no framework for tie-in, but I might ask a question about, one of the things that I really am, and that's after you're done and they say, so what do you do? Because when you do that first, someone will always finally get exhausted, realize they've monopolized the conversation. And unless they're a total narcissist, they'll say, oh, so what do you do? Right? And so that's where we are. She just said, so what do you do? Well, I work with women and money. So I work with money too, just like you do. Do you know what the tie is between money and domestic abuse? So I will create an opportunity for them to say, well, no. Well, would you like to know what I found out? And then they have an chance to either, in which case you answer in 30 seconds and you let it go. Or they say, yeah, I would. And then I would say one more thing. So this is priming the conversation. I haven't said anything about it, but I'm gauging and setting their interest. And I would then say to banker I'll tell you what the tie-in is. And as I do that, maybe you can also think about the women that are your clients in the banking and how what I'm explaining to you might tie into that. And so I've engaged them to give me some of their wisdom too. And then I say, they know I know about them because I listened to them very attentively and carefully. So I was a good listener and I did all that. That's number 1. So they already like me. She already likes me. She knows that I care about her stuff and that I've asked a bunch of really interesting questions. And then she also knows that I work with money like she does. So we have a commonality. And the second thing is I'm asking her to listen, to tell me from your expertise as a banker what this might have to do. And then you say, well, I work with helping women understand their money and their assets more to prevent or to mitigate domestic abuse. And then you have an instant right there in one sentence and one moment to gauge a lean in like, okay, tell me about that. And they're not now buried with the need to talk because you've already undone that. So step one is be a good listener. Step two is prime the conversation. All right, now we're going to put a great big comma there and go back to marketing is not slimy. So we're not going to really have a conversation about that, but that's just an easy way. I don't have any trouble getting to a place in a conversation where people have asked me and they're interested very much in what I do. And the reason is because I do that first. And I do it for self-preservation. And by the way, this is actually marketing. So we're not even putting a comma there, because the first thing you need to understand is marketing is every time you show up somewhere and open your mouth.
Right.
Every time you show up somewhere and open your mouth. So this is about learning how to do it, learning how to talk about your stuff in a way that relates to other people and everything else. So point one, marketing is not slimy. It is truthful. And so if I'm Yvette in that conversation, I'm going to then just say, I'm going to parse the 38 things that I could say. And I'm going to say, you know, I've seen in my research that women who know more about banking and investments and their money are far better prepared for domestic struggles, perhaps separation and divorce, or just the issues of getting along than women who aren't. Do you see that? And so I'm being truthful. I've pulled the relevant facts out, and that has nothing to do with sliminess or marketing or anything. But what I'm doing is drawing a person into a conversation. All right. So that's an in-person conversation. Now, Yvette, I'm going to stop. You have any comments on there at this point?
Oh, no, I am fully engaged. This is totally working, Kelly.
All right. Well, I just realized that I was monopolizing, and I don't want to do that. So.
No, I was fully engaged. It was working.
All right. So then after I'm Yvette, and I'm saying the things that I think the banker will resonate with, because it's about financial literacy. It's about asset management, and women who are sort of, pardon the bad metaphor, but the sort of the dumb blonde old kind of thing about their money, about their taxes. I didn't know he was cheating on his taxes. I didn't know he was a crook. I didn't this, I didn't that. You know, they're the ones that are more likely to be duped. They're the ones that are more likely to find themselves in trouble, spend too much money, and get in fights over credit cards and debts and shopping and all of the rest of the stuff that goes into that. Okay. Yes. Is that true?
I'm reminded of, I can't remember what the show was, but this woman was, she goes to get a loan or something to buy like an apartment or something, and realizes that her shoes, the money she spent on shoes, does not count as an asset. She spent like 40,000 or 50,000 or whatever it is on shoes, but it's some, you know, what most of us would consider a ridiculous amount of money. And she, for the first time when she goes to the bank to get the loan, realizes that shoes do not count as an asset, even if they're designer shoes. I think that's like an example of, you know, what happens when somebody is really clueless about assets and, you know, financial investing and, you know, where they're investing their resources.
So that's beautiful. And it's a perfect example. So the part two that we're going to, part two here is marketing. And we're going to have to hurry because it's 20 after already. Marketing is a service to your prospects. So Yvette, as an artist, is talking to me now, banker, and we're going to switch roles.
Okay.
And so you've already done everything that we've just gone through. And now you're telling me, and how would you think about serving me as a banker? Mm-hmm. And who's been interested? And I leaned in and I said, wow, really?
Right.
In all the right places. And you've already let me blather. So I'm like not looking to say more. Now, what would you say to me? It says number two is marketing is a service to your prospect. How could it possibly be a service to me?
In terms of helping to make a more meaningful connection with the women that you serve or those you would want to get as customers, I would probably want to know what you were already doing in terms of engaging or customer acquisition with regards to the women's market.
That's a perfect question. I want you guys to listen to that. So she said, I want to know what you're doing with women.
Right.
The reason she would want to know that is to find out if what she does can be a service to me. So this is part two. Your marketing is actually a service to your prospect. Now, what I'm doing in this conversation with Yvette about this thing that she wrote, Women's Crossings, and this imaginary banker, is I'm letting you see that marketing has nothing to do with slime, lying, or anything else. It's actually figuring out how you're actually providing a service to this person. Now, at any point, there can be an off-ramp when you see this person actually couldn't care less about whatever it is that I do, and you politely are grateful that you did the introduction. So we're going to move quickly through this because I want to move it from an in-person conversation to online, since that's how most marketing is done, in a minute. But I want you to keep going. So you asked me what I done. Well, I brr about women. And so go on.
Well, I would want, but assuming that something that you said, let's assume something you said had to do with some sort of class, you know, some sort of financial training or something that you provide. And so we would talk about what your plans were for the future of that. And contextualizing, I would talk about how Women Crossings could provide a context for some of those conversations or even some of those trainings to be delivered to a specific audience as part of an event or something like that.
So she's done two things that were brilliant and instantaneous. One, she would have either suggested that I might need to do some training to reach out to the women's market if I wasn't, or in the context that I was doing something like that, an outreach to women businesses or an outreach to women who want to learn more about their money, because there is a gender gap in terms of understanding about money. So let's just, there's two things. One, am I doing anything? Yes or no? And if no, well, you might want to think about it. And I have a couple of ideas. Would you be interested?
Right.
You know, and none of that's anything except true serving. So I need more women clients as a banker. Of course I do. It's a growing market, and more, you know, so I'm like, yeah, okay. And so then she's going to say, well, if you're already doing it, I have an idea for you. Or if you're not doing it, I have an idea for you. All right, perfect. Yeah. So let's move on. And so the point three is marketing is essential to business. So this is just a point that's an obvious, dead bang, fall off your chair, obvious point. Marketing is essential to business. Every starving artist out there who isn't marketing, that's still starving or working this other job to support their habit, knows intuitively, whether they want to admit it or not, the marketing is essential to business. So the idea that you don't have to do it, don't think that and don't live there. But what we're trying to do is integrate, help you with an overcoming program. What is that? A 12-step program condensed into 2 or 3 steps of getting off the idea that you don't have to market or that it's bad, right into understanding that it's really essential. Okay, and it's
or
not
that
bad.
You can't do it, and getting rid of the idea that you can't do it. It's simple as a conversation.
That's a powerful point. Many people think, I can't, I don't know how. Well, you didn't know how to walk at one point. You didn't know how to do your art at one point. You didn't know how to whatever. And so I hate marketing. People say, I hate marketing. I hate marketing. Well, my guess is people that you hate marketing have never actually gone to someone who's good at it, not slimy, not anything else, and ask for some help.
Right.
Now, I'm going to make the fourth point, which is going to make some of you mad, and I don't care. And that is, marketing tests your commitment to your art. If you are not committed to if you don't market, you're not committed to your art, period. Because you actually don't give a crap if people find you or benefit from what you do or not. And there, I've said it in a really grumpy way so you can be appropriately mad. I don't care. So marketing tests your commitment to your art. Yvette, what would you say to that statement?
I agree. Writing Women's Crossings was one, well, having the idea and then writing it was one thing, but the marketing of it has been a part of the journey, but I decided to make it part of the development of the piece. I've had a couple of stage readings. We're planning another one in a few months, so I'm doing another rewrite. So I think that absolutely, and I'm making the marketing of it more a part of this next rewrite of the development process, integrating a lot of what I've been learning through your coaching. So absolutely.
Okay, so thank you for the plug. All right, so here we are at the end of a half hour, and I didn't plan it this way, but if I had, this would be marketing. So I'm both pulling back the curtain and doing it at the same time. So I would say to you, wow, if you're a creative and you need to market your stuff, what you've seen in this half hour is a conversation about helping you understand that it's not slimy, that it's just about telling the truth. It's about being an engaged listener and finding out how you can really help somebody in a real life situation. I missed point 3, so I would be smoother than this if I was marketing because I wasn't planning on doing this. But point 3 is That it's a critical and essential part of your business, and that if you're not marketing, you're not really committed to your art and the good that you might do. So you've seen an example in this conversation about how to do that in person. But we all know that most interaction, particularly initial interaction, is taking place online. And even if you've met somebody somewhere, they're going to run and check you out online anyway, real quick. And if what they find online doesn't equal what you said, then they're going to believe what's on the web, not what you said, because people assume you lie and what's online is somehow the truth, even though we all know that's crap. So that's what happens. Now, if I were marketing, what I would say to you is, you see the word business intensive down there. One of the things I do to help businesses break the mold, to help wannapreneurs and entrepreneurs create the necessary tools, skills, impetus, and courage to market themselves and do it well and effectively, is I run a coaching program. Yvette is part of it. Many others are a part of it. I also run a business intensive event, which is coming in December on the 7th, 8th, and 9th. And if you want to come to that and launch your business way into the stratosphere really fast, then you should get a hold of me about that event. All right, now I'm out of character, and that's what I would do if I was marketing, because what I did is I gave you one frame that you could tie to in person.
Right.
And then at the end I said, oh, and by the way, since we know that online is like at least 50% and maybe 80 of part of this process, you really need to come and do whatever. Okay. Right. So that's what I would do if I had thought about this as a marketing venue, which I didn't. We just ran out of time. Right. So Yvette, before we sign off, and I'm doing that just to show you an example of creating interest, creating desire. Now, Yvette, I want you to react to what I just said, since you know that I do those things. React to that.
I totally agree. And it reminded me of one of the biggest compliments I ever got was somebody that I had known online for a few years. And when we met in person, he said, I was just like I was online. Something along those lines, like, you're just like you were online. And I took that as such a huge compliment. And I thought, like, okay, so I come across as genuine. I come across as being me. And I think that that's really what you're talking about, is that's what I've gotten from the coaching and from these conversations, is marketing is really having a conversation where people get to know you, you establish rapport, build a little, maybe some trust. But where it's really like a conversation of sharing. You learn about what they do and maybe what their needs are, and then how you can help. That's it.
I love the fact that you use that compliment, and I didn't prime this. And so people watching are going to think I did, but people do that to me too. And I consider it a huge compliment too. What I saw is they put their hand in front of their face, because I do so many videos, right? And they go like this. They go, hey, dude, you're the same person online and on the videos. Dude. I had somebody do that. I've had it happen more than once. And I consider it a huge compliment too. It's like, yeah, what you see is what you get. I mean, the sort of ultimate easy way, right? All right, cool. Well, Yvette, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you. This was fun. This was really good. Thank you.
Okay, so we got one more of these at least, and maybe there'll be a bonus. So next Saturday at the same time, if you enjoyed this, please put some comments in the thing, and don't be invisible, and let's have some conversation. If you want to talk about particular things or have some questions, put them in. We'll handle them next time. And then other than that, we'll see you next Saturday at the same time. Bye-bye. Say bye, Yvette.
Bye-bye.